G'day expats and welcome to another episode of Expat Chat, episode 128 today. And as we're screaming into the end of the calendar year, joined as always with my mate and colleague, Managing Director for the APAC region, James Ridley. G'day, James.
Good morning, Brett. And for those that are tuning in and viewing us on the YouTube channel, to my left, you'll see Brett Evans, the Managing Director and Founding Director of the Atlas Wealth Group, who is based over in the Middle East in the sandpit. How's things going over there, Brett? Is it starting to get a bit cooler?
Mate, loving it. Loving it. I was up at the, as I was saying before, off the air, I was up with the family at the golf club watching Australia, unfortunately, lose to Scotland.
Get
but it's
decimated.
so nice. Yeah, we had an average time, but it was nice to sit outside and have a beer and watch it on the big screen. And this time of year, a lot of folks are surprised by Dubai this time of year. How nice it is. It's sort of like a Gold Coast winter is the best way to describe Dubai.
Yeah.
So it can get cold, as you can attest to. And mate, it's a lovely place to be this time of year. July, August, not so much. But for those who are arriving into the region for the first time, this is not the norm. This is the best time of year, but it's great. The whole the country gets into Christmas, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, everything transforms, and it is that time of the year. Everything is starting to transform. You go through all the big shopping centres back in Australia. Everything's got Christmas all over it. You've got all the decorations. You've got all the carols going on, and I think around this time we always see a lot of Australians heading back to Australia, doing the kangaroo hop back, catch up with family, friends, and I think that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. So I'll get you to do the disclaimer, and we'll jump into it, mate.
Matt, all the information we're going to share with the good folks on the call today is for informational and educational purposes only. Please do not construe this as personal advice. If you do need to get personal advice, please speak to a specialist, licensed specialist, I should say, someone like Atlas.
Absolutely, mate. Jumping into today. So, seasonally, we always see a lot of Australians head back to Australia around this time of the year. A lot of my clients that are in the US, Thanksgiving starts to kick off, and a lot of them, put in their annual leave. So, they have Thanksgiving, they come back to Australia for a couple of weeks, and they spend time with friends, family, do the roundup, and then head back over the US. And it's just similar, I suppose, in the Middle East, and I think throughout, the rest of the world, to be honest. But there are a few things that Australians, when they are returning, need to be mindful of. And it goes back to, obviously, their habits, tax residency, and a few things. And it's these little gotchas, these accidental gotchas. And it's making sure that, if you are a resident in another country, you're basing yourself out of UAE or Qatar or wherever it might be, that you treat yourself like that, and you don't give the ATO or the Australian government the wrong notifications just by accident. Often you can do it accidentally when you're tired as hell, you're arriving at 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, not thinking, and you just make the wrong declarations.
Mate, you're spot on, and I think we can all be not forgiven, but excused for making the wrong choices, because when you look at those cards, as you say, at 3 or 4 in the morning, you're about to come into Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, and you're tired and you're dusty and you're jet lagged, and especially if you've only been an expat for a short period of time and you're used to traveling and used to ticking certain boxes, that muscle memory that you resident returning. But you, as we've seen with border security, that great show of border security harassing tourists coming into the country and all that sort of stuff. That document, both sides, is a legal declaration. And there is now precedence in situations with non-resident cases with the ATO, where the ATO regularly relies upon those cards in terms of enforcing or verifying their judgments against expats living overseas. So if we look at the card itself, and I've got one on the screen right here in front of me so I can talk first person. So when you're coming in, obviously in the left-hand side, which country do you board the ship? What is your usual occupation? We go just to the right. There's A, B, and C that people can select from. A, migrating permit to Australia. That's not anyone on the call, none of our clients, not expats in general. Now you're down to B and C. And if you have travelled frequently while living in Australia, an Australian tax resident, you're used to be ticking box C, which is resident returning to Australia. And it asks you the country where you spent the most of the time abroad. And a lot of people just default to ticking that because they assume resident means citizen. And in the interchangeability between it, but it's a very big distinction because you're not a resident, you're a non-resident. So if you're a non-resident for tax purposes, living overseas permanently, you've severed ties with Australia, option B is what you want to tick. And option B says visitor or temporary entrant. You tick that box. You indicate your intended length of stay in Australia. You also, your country of residence and your main reasons for coming to Australia, which for most folks will be visiting friends or relatives. So people have a bit of apathy in the past. Yeah, it doesn't matter what, tick this box. But as I said, we have seen cases where, and there was a great one where there was a offshore oil rig diver who was bouncing back and forth. Wife lived in Perth, and he was ticking resident returning. And the ATO actually used that as a legal declaration to say, there's your declaration. You told us that you're a resident returning. These cards end up in a warehouse in Canberra 2 days after you arrive. They're scanned into the system, and then they're shared through all the government portals. So most government agencies who have access will be able to see what box you ticked. And it's important, as we know, being a non-resident, to always declarations map to your intent. And that's the biggest thing I think we're trying to get across to folks. While everyone's sort of slightly fresh, before that travel back to Australia, you just need to remember, do not tick the wrong box.
That's right. And I think what's interesting also, within the background right now, we still got those modernising residency rules, and a bit of an unknown when that's going to pop up. I think Australian government's got a bit on their hands, and we're in the last sitting week of the government this week, and that's not really on their to-do list, to be honest. But depending on how those new residencies look in the future, making sure you're ticking the right things for a lot of these cards, if you're in a country which doesn't have a DTA, a tax treaty at all, is going to be really important, because if they keep it where it stands at the moment with that 45-day factor test, or if they increase it to 60 or 90 days, time, and this is part of our consultation that we gave the government, time in Australia purely for work-related activities and, ticking this box that is temporary won't add to that daily count, which is really important. Time that you're back here visiting family, friends, yeah, of course, you're still here temporarily, but using up that day count. So I can see the use of these cards being a lot more significant, especially, with the ATO and going back to the tax residency rules. They're going to have to create a bit of a system where it all links up, TFN, all those sort of things, which they can do. Data feeds will eventually get there, especially with AI these days as well. But I think it's pretty common. We'll be coming back to Australia, and if you're jet lagged as hell and you could accidentally tick the wrong things. We've seen it time and time again. But that being said, when you're back in Australia, if you're here for a couple of weeks, just be mindful of what you're doing as well. I've had the odd client tell me that they've come back for a month and they've signed up for a gym membership, and they've left Australia, but they've kept that accidentally rolling for like another 6 months just because it's cheap, and they're like, I forgot about it. Shit, I need to go into the actual gym to cancel it. That's how that gym operates. They want you to come in face to face, have an interview, debrief. So just be mindful of those accidental things. Signing up a gym membership is actually a really easy and common one to accidentally do. There might be some other things as well, but treat yourself like you're here for a holiday. You're not going to be signing up to things permanently at all. You're back for a purpose, catching up with friends and family, 2 weeks, then you're out. So don't be, obviously creating anything which could be seen as ongoing and permanent over, say, a 12-month period.
I think also too, I saw an article the other day that they're looking at making these forms digitized, where you download an app before returning to Australia. So once again, the layout may change. If you're used to ticking visitor, just be mindful under the new app. I know I haven't seen it yet because I think they're only rolling it out to certain countries initially, and then it'll be broader after that. Just be mindful that the phraseology may change. I can't speak to what that looks like at the moment, but certainly for those folks on the call, if you do have any personal experience, there's a feedback form down below. I'd love to hear, because I do believe it's been rolled out to individual countries step by step. So to me, forewarned is forearmed. Just give it that extra. Have a coffee first or a tea before you tick the box. Even better, do it before when you just jump on the plane. Ask for the card then when you're actually synapses are actually firing. And
these cards. These cards haven't changed too much, to be honest, over the last couple of years. So, they literally have a whole, when you get off the plane, there's usually a section where you can pull over and do it. There's thousands of there that are empty. You could actually grab a batch and
Yep.
just file them into your travel wallet before your even trip. You could actually pre-complete and go, I've already done it. Great. I just need my passport, pay it into
Yep.
customs, tick, they walk
Yeah.
you through.
Yeah, do it when you're alert, do it when you're thinking, because the last thing you want to see is, and look, are they going to ping you if everything else is rock solid? Are they going to make you a resident for tax purposes just because you ticked the wrong box? No. But like we know with a lot of expats, your residency claim is grey because we're talking about 1936 tax rules here, so it doesn't exactly line up in that perfect cookie cutter approach. The last thing you want to do is give them one extra bit to look at you for, and then try and draw some arbitrary line that doesn't exist to line other things up to try and force their point to say that you're a resident for tax purposes as opposed to being a non-resident. So just give it the time of day, give it a bit of extra thought, bit of extra effort, and you should be okay.
Absolutely. And be mindful of accidentally signing up to things on a permanent 12-month basis, even though you might be here for a couple of weeks.
Right. I think it's a great tip. Yeah, it's a great tip because I think, just go to a hotel gym, or there's many other places you can go without having to sign up. So, and think of when you come into Australia, I think the best way to think is if you're coming, say, from US or China or UAE or UK, would a British, Emirati, Chinese or a American tourist do this? Don't just fall into that false sense of security that I'm Aussie, so I can do this. No, you want to act and map to that of the country you're coming from.
That's exactly right. So stick with it, and you're only here temporarily. It's a holiday. You're not signing up to anything permanent.
Mate,
we've drilled that home. We've drilled it home pretty hard.
We have, mate. We have. So let's leave the folks there for the day. Next week we'll do another one that's quite topical this time of year, and looking forward to keep you guys informed, educated, and financially fit.
Absolutely. Only a couple of weeks left remaining in the calendar year. If you do have some feedback for us, or if you're unaware of our Facebook group that we do run, the Australian Expat Financial Forum, jump in there. There's some great things going on between expats all around the world. We'd love to see it. In the meantime, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, mate. Take care.